You only see yourself. Nothing that you see is you. Wonderful phrases that just kind of perplex and take some unpacking. I like these types of phrases because they force us to kind of embrace conundrum, or they force us to embrace paradox and context and all of that, which is so important, because one of the things you catch on with is, and one of the things that's even shared in some of the ancient texts on yoga, and some of the stuff that you might find yourself studying when you're seeking esoteric knowledge, or when you're seeking truth, or spiritual stuff, whatever it is, you might find yourself coming across some terms, some phrases that are sort of paradoxical. And it's actually stated in some of the scriptures that the absolute truth cannot be spoken. Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, he said exactly that. He said the Tao that can be spoken is not the real Tao, is not the true Tao. In the Upanishads, those Upanishads are in my other bookshelf. But in the Upanishads, actually the Upanishads are next to my bed. It's stated that the truth, or Brahman, is totally beyond thought, beyond mind, beyond materialism, and that sort of thing. On and on and on. But these paradoxical statements often are really great, because they start to get us to expand beyond what our conditioned knowledge, or beyond like our comfort levels of understanding and thought processes and stuff. They actually allow for more to be more. They give us more space to fathom more, I guess is what we could say. So this phrase, you only see yourself, you are not what you see, comes from let's ground in on the idea of karma, or the idea of the world being a reflection, or the world that we see being a reflection of our inner world. You can even tie in the law of attraction here, of like how we attract into our life what we hold inside. Our beliefs inside are sort of like, they have a magnetism to them that calls in certain experiences in our life, and that sort of thing. So what's meant by you only see yourself is that what you can look at the world as sort of having a reflective quality for you to experience. Based on this kind of philosophy, everything that comes into your experience, anything that you witness, everything that you witness actually has some degree of reflective quality, of mirroring back to you your inner world, which is amazing on so many levels, because one, that makes me fully responsible for what I experience and what I witness in the world, and two, it gives me choice. It actually makes it possible for me to shift my life experience, shift the quality of my outer world experience by shifting my inner world experience. So when it comes to, let's talk about a few contexts where this is really valuable. One of the places that I find the most value in is my relationship with other human beings, especially with other human beings that like piss me off or that trigger me, or that offend me, or that I judge. If this philosophy is true and it's real, I'm only judging an aspect of myself. I'm only pissed off at an aspect of myself. I'm only angry resentful, judgmental towards beings that are only showing me parts of myself that I'm not looking at, that I'm ignoring. There's a pretty old common statement that actually right from the Bible says, I think one of the greatest teachings from the Bible is the thorn you see in in another's eye is only your seeing of your own. First pull out the thorn from your own eye, something like that, paraphrasing. But this is one of the greatest teachings, because it says, don't judge others. You know, don't point your finger and blame others for your problems. Don't point out the flaw in another, because you're only disregarding your own. And again, going with this sort of cosmology, or this sort of philosophy about the nature of the universe and the world, you could say that you're really bypassing and missing the point of life, emotion. You're missing the point of like your own inner field and experience of what is actually going on, the cues from your inner world, what they're trying to say to you. You know, our inner world, our inner experience, that's sort of processing the outer world. Our inner experience of it is showing us the stuff that's inside and giving us sort of a gauge at what the reflection is trying to share with us. I hope this is clear. It's a little, interwoven, and it kind of tangles in itself. But this first part of the phrase, you only see yourself, I find so much value in, because it gets me out of giving myself the space to look at other. I ultimately want to see and experience oneness. That's my goal. And I remember hearing about this idea when I was younger, and it's really captivated my thinking since then, and really becomes more and more an endeavor within and without. So I really am motivated to know this for sure, to know if this oneness thing is real, and if it is, to not just like say it and say that's a fun, great idea, but to really embody it, to really actually experience it. And this is one of the clearest ways that I've actually been able to perceive oneness as an experience and not just an idea and a thought. This itself right here that we're discussing and talking about is an exercise and an embodiment of unity consciousness, by acknowledging that everything that I witness in my world is a reflection of my inner world. And especially when it comes to my experiences with other human beings, it removes all space for blame, for resentment, and these sort of really negative perceptions or the perception of victimhood, the perception of like superiority and inferiority. I'm greater or I'm less than any other being, are all symptoms and expressions of my ignorant ego sense of self. So this kind of philosophy wipes out all of the space I might have to allow myself to perceive the world that way. Because all of this is my choice. And you'd be surprised at how much power you have when you really are clear and have clear lines within yourself of what you allow your perception to be of. If I give myself space to say, oh, well, I can justify blame in this direction, right? And there's lots of areas in the world where we can justify blame, where we can justify being resentful towards others, where we can justify being like, those people over there are really bad people, you know, and having that perspective. It's really easy to allow that because some of it's so justifiable. But we, as human beings, in our thinking, don't understand the totality of the balance of the universe. We can't fathom it in thought. We can only fathom it in the heart. We can only know divinity. We can only know that there's a benevolence to reality. We can only know the truth about reality that I can testify and say is benevolent despite the justifiable resentments that I can have and judgments towards the way that the world is, all the evil and horrible things that are happening in the world is part of the balance. The dark is part of the balance of light. And this is like kind of the play of existence. This gives me a radical acceptance for what is in the world and a trust that there is a divinity woven and laced within all of existence and all of life all the time. No experience is excluded from the divinity that is all benevolent all the time. Everything is reflective and mirroring and attracting and repelling each other based on the frequencies that are harbored inside of us. So whatever I need to go through in my life is something that somehow along the line has gotten instilled on my being, and it's my choice whether I hold it and continue to attract these types of events and experiences into my life, or I can surrender it, release it, alchemize it, and become free of it. And in fact, actually cleanse it and purify so that it doesn't get put back into the pool of karma, but it gets cleansed and purified through me because I've alchemized the energy inside of myself. And then I clear and clean the pool for others. Whew. Big responsibility we have, big opportunity we have. I just looked at the time. It was right as I ended that little phrase. It was 11:11 on the clock. Not on the time clock, but on the time of this video. Cool little moment. Thank you for acknowledging me, divine spirit that communicates with me in numbers, apparently. So I invite those who are listening and those who are resonating with this, because this might not resonate with you. This might piss you off. This might make you angry because you want to be resentful, because there's a satisfaction that goes along with being like, look at how bad those people are, because it instantly puts you in a space of superiority. You're greater than them because they're bad, and some of us really get off on that. I used to, the superiority complex in these little ways. Even a victim mindset is a sense of superiority if you think about it, right? It's just an endeavor to feel superior, which is total ego, being a victim. Because there's some bad person out there doing something horrible to you, it puts you in a higher place than them, right? Puts you above them. And the ego is always looking for this hierarchy, this dominance, this I'm greater than, So this is one of the ways we can indicate where these things are coming from. So I really love this philosophy. It's been so beautiful for me to show up to life and with all these things that I witness and focus on how do I alchemize them. Not just like bounce back and keep feeding into the pool. I say the pool, I'm talking about the pool of karma. There's like, if karma's a pool, we all like splash in it and create waves and ripples by, just functioning from our ego sense. But if I can find stillness in myself and clear and allow things that arise within me to be alchemized and released within me by staying serene, by staying centered in my heart, by when my thought narratives come up and show up in my world, and they want to create all these stories for me to believe in, and then create perceptions that I accept and then express through, and then put that energy back into the world. When I do that, I'm splashing in the pool, and I'm putting more of whatever that stuff is back into the pool. The only way to not, and then ultimately attracting more of it into my witnessing and into my experiencing. Okay? The only way not to do that is to not get involved with it. Stay centered in the heart of my being, which is peaceful, which is accepting of everything that happens in the world because it knows why things happen. And to focus my attention and awareness on that space within inside myself, my soul essence. And then the intuitive, creative flow of energy, or if you want to just call it inspiration, revelation, can support my actions. I can't say what you're going to express yourself as through your divine connection. For some of it's gonna look very sweet and soft and peaceful. For others, it's gonna be fiery, and like the sword coming down and powerful and piercing. For it's going to express itself in different ways through every being, but each of us has the same essence to connect to that can support in guiding our actions and perceptions. And it's an essence of wholeness. It's an essence of radical acceptance for what is. Because understanding this very principle of my inner world and what I harbor inside, my beliefs, my perspectives, about who I am, what I am, about if I express an experience and believe myself as separate from everything in existence, and that things are happening to me in the world, right? Then my perceptions are going to be that of I'm capable and I'm susceptible to being offended. I'm capable and susceptible of being a victim, of being superior or greater than another being, which just creates disturbances and imbalances all over the place. Because ultimately it's an illusion. But when I root myself, at least with the intention of, okay, how do I find the unity? How do I experience the oneness in this moment? And this is one of the greatest ways. Everything that I see is only myself, is only a reflection of myself. That's the first phrase. The second part of that is, you are not what you see, which seems to contradict what we just said. So what do we mean by that? What we mean by that is when it comes to self, when it comes to what I say is myself, nothing that can be witnessed can be what I am, because I am the perceiver of that. This is one fact about all of our existence, is that what I am is a perceiver or a witness. I am the perceiver of existence. And when we can anchor in this so deeply and sort of plunge our attention, awareness into the perceiver, then we find something really profound. We actually find our essence there. When I direct my perception inward and dive my attention deep into my own raw perceiving, my own absolutely raw awareness and attention. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's break this down, because if you think about what I just said, there's something happening here. I'm declaring the self is the pure witness. The self is the pure witness. And then what did I say after that? My attention. Driving the attention. What does that mean? It means my attention is something that moves. My perception, or my perceiving, my essence as a witness, is immovable. If you think about it this way, the witnessing aspect of your being, which again is the only pure and true aspect of your being, right, is the same within your waking world, and as you experience, you're perceiving, right? All you're doing is perceiving, okay, and then things come up, there's feelings, there's thoughts, there's perceptions, there's narratives, there's emotions, there's all this stuff, there's attention all over the place running around, right? But perception itself, witnessing itself, never moves. It's always just witnessing, and it witnesses everything. Nothing can pass in front of awareness and not be noticed. Okay, so there's that. And then in dreaming, it's the same exact witnessing. It never changes. It doesn't shift or change. It's not a different type of witnessing. It's pure witnessing. Exactly the same as it is in the waking world. And then in deep sleep, though the mind has shut down, the ego has shut down. There's no sense of self. There's nothing to be perceived. Yet perception is still there, because when we wake up, we know what the quality of our sleep was. When we wake up, wow, I slept really good. What knows that? The ego disappeared. The processes of thought, the brain goes into this wavelength state where there's no activity of mind stuff. The mind, you could say, disappears. That's why we don't have any memory. There's no time orientation really with sleep, right? But we know that we slept well or not. So there's awareness, aware of nothing. So sleep is an experience, an awareness of nothing going on, or nothing to be declared, sort of. Right? So that's one thing we can confirm, is the witnessing is changeless. And then everything else, that's the self. The witness is changeless, right? And then anything and everything else that can be noticed or witnessed cannot be what I am. And that includes my attention, because we just talked about it. There's the witness, and then plunging the attention into the witness. So the intention that can arise from this, of taking the attention and plunging it into the witnessing, it does this very interesting thing. And revealing to me that there's something that can control what arises. And there's also something that's transcendent of what arises. And what happens when the attention goes into the witness is it burns, just like it does when we go into deep sleep, except we're conscious aware and there's like stuff to perceive. This is kind of like waking up in the dream. It's realizing that I'm just the witness and all this stuff is just some kind of show in front of me, that I'm transcendent of the show, that what's going on around me, even the stuff that I identify with currently, and this is really where the sweet spot is when I realize all the stuff that I identify in my mind, in my body, in any other aspect, in any other way, in any other layer, is not actually myself. And this is incredibly potent, because all the other stuff is changeful. So, and mortal, has a lifespan, including my body. And what happens when I know for certain that I am immortal? What happens when my sense of identity is not on my body anymore? What happens when I know that I don't die? I'm going to leave that one for you to contemplate. What happens when I recognize and know for certain that I am eternal spiritual being? What happens? Find out. I'm not going to tell you. I can't tell you. I can tell you what happens for my experiencing of existence when I anchor there. I can tell you all about it, but it wouldn't mean anything to you, and it doesn't matter, and it might not help you actually. All that matters is you find out. You go and check it out. You go and look and you see, and then tell me what it's like. So you are not what you see, including the attention that moves in and out, which is really important, because you might say, I sometimes feel really peaceful and really joyful, like when I meditate. And then like sometimes I have days where I feel like I'm just tossed around and disturbed. This is because the identity has been put on something that moves. The identity has been put on something that changes and fluctuates. So this all is really a matter of keeping anchored the identity on the unmovable, unchanging witness. And only identifying with that allows you to be free of everything else that comes and goes. And you find a sense of purification happening with this also, because that witness is connected with the source of existence and creation itself. There's a phrase from the Upanishads that's pretty common and familiar. Tat tvam asi means that thou art, which doesn't really mean anything to anybody unless you know the context. But what it's saying is there's an ultimate reality. There's an ultimate reality to existence that's sort of hidden, that's underlying. It's unmanifest, woven within the manifest, eternally one with all in existence. That is Brahman, the absolute, ultimate reality. It is Satchidananda. It is existence itself. It's not something that exists. It's existence itself. It's consciousness. It's not conscious. It's not knowledge. It's not knowingness. It's knowledge itself, and it's consciousness itself. It's not being aware. It's awareness itself. And it's Ananda. It's bliss. It's not something that brings joy. It is joy itself, and it is eternally that, changeless. It never sways or wavers from its essence, ever. So there's that. Tat. Tvam. That thou, meaning you. What is you? You are Atman. You are self. A subjective experience. You have a direct experience of existence, whatever existence is. That's another thing. But that Brahman, that absolute reality, is you. Tat Tvam, you, that thou are. Asi. Are. You're one with that. That Brahman is what existence spawns from. We'll do another video on what actually existence is from that. It's a whole thing too. But from that Brahman spawns existence, and you are one with that Brahman. So the source of existence is you, within you, as the witnessing consciousness, the Atman. The self is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam, I am only Brahman. A mantra from the Ribhu Gita. Which is here, this one. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam. A wonderful mantra. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam. I am Brahman only. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam. All that I am, the only thing that I am, is Brahman. I am one. And why that's important in our context is in this second phrase of this little chat that we're having here is you are not what you see. You are not what you see. What can be perceived is not self, can never be self. It cannot be self. Because you see it. Right? And just as a kind of a silly example, if I take this, I take this book, right? And I can see it, I can hold it, it's apart from myself, right? Because I have this here in front of me, it can't be what I am, right? It can't be self or subjective. Because it's an object. So the philosophy here, when it comes to my inner experience of life and existence and why it's important and why it's valuable, is to know that anything that I can perceive within inside myself, and this is for like when I meditate, when I inquire about my own being, my own nature, if I sit, meditate, and calmly contemplate, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? If I want to get to the real root and ground of who and what I am in essence, in purity, in absolute truth, then my meditation consists of everything that arises to say, this is not me, because it can be seen. And in the subtlest little ripple, when you get through this, there's certain things that are obvious, right? You can even start with the physical world. With my eyes open, I can look around and say, this is not me. I'm not the mirror. I'm not the stuff that's around. This is not self. This is not me. And then I can say, I'm also not my interpretation of any of it. I am not my thoughts. I am not the ideas. I am also not the emotional reactions to any of it. I am not the things that fluctuate or move around. Because it can be seen, because it's in front of me, it's on the screen that I'm seeing, it cannot be what I am. I am the witness only. All that I am is the witness consciousness in its purity, and I am ever transcendent of that and immortal and eternal. So taking all of that back, as I sit and I get closer and closer and deeper inside myself, the more subtle the little ripples of mind are within, to even to the degree where the very identifier aspect of mind, to the very subtle aspect of attention itself. The deeper I go in meditation, the deeper I go in my attention and awareness on the subtle and more subtle aspects, I start to see the smallest little ripples, the smallest little flicker of emotion as it arises, little triggers that come up. The deeper I get in tune with this and say, this stuff is not me, that's the releasing of it. The identifying of everything in these moods of separation is what holds the stuff into our being, which ultimately, as we talked about before, determines the quality and nature of our reality. So what it means to release is to be able to exist and witness without getting involved with it, staying purely as the witness. Your actions, don't worry, will respond in perfect harmony to your life experiences with passion, with vigor, and vitality, because that witnessing consciousness comes from the source of existence itself, that is always moving in perfect harmony, that is ever eternally wise in keeping things in balance and harmony, that you don't need to think about it. Your spontaneous actions, when rooted in that place, allow you to be a part of the world spontaneously in perfect harmony when you're rooted there. So this is why this is so important, because this is something we all want. We want to be able to be authentic in the world. We want to be able to be passionate with full energy out in the world and be exactly what our unique expression of existence is, without feeling bad about it, without feeling guilty, without feeling shameful, without feeling anxiety. All of these things. We want to be our spontaneous actions to be perfectly harmonious with every aspect of life. We want our spontaneous thoughts and actions to align with our abundance, with our prosperity, with our wellness and health for our body, for our mental states, and for our community, for how we show up and how we are experienced. Not only our experience of the world, but what the world experiences of us. We want our spontaneous actions to be aligned in the most harmonious ways and joyful and happy ways. So is this not what we all want? So this is sort of one of the ways that we can really tune into how do we actually start cultivating that. Right? And don't think you're just going to snap into it, because that identifier, and I hope it does, if it's possible, that's wonderful. But what's really important to acknowledge is that the habit, the sort of automatic identifying of that is really what we need to like back out of and over time kind of realign with. So it's going to feel like, that's what I mentioned it before, like sometimes it feels like I really got it, and sometimes I feel like I get sucked in. Remember that the I that moves in and out is only the attention. The attention moving in and out of like a nice, blissful, peaceful, meditation centered place, or something joyful, or whatever it is, and then something that experiences the turmoil of the mind is only the attention. It's not the self. So it's not something to say I to. I am the witness only. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam. All that I am is Brahman, is the eternal witness. That's as it's manifested inside my being. Right? And this is very, very extremely subtle witnessing, an extremely subtle awareness to have. So be patient. It may not be something that just clicks and then it's like you hear this talk today and you're just like, okay, everything's good now. Woohoo, thank you so much. I'm done. I'm good. I'm over. I got it. Because that might come up. That's an ego thing, to say, I've got it. I'm done forever. I don't have to do any work anymore. That's probably one of the greatest things the ego has ever said. Because this takes a tremendous diligence and something to show up with every day, because in every moment, is because while we're alive, while we're embodied, every instant, this ability or capacity to slip into identity with something that we're not is available and possible. Okay, just as much as being able to stay rooted and anchored in the witnessing purely is possible all the time, unwavering. It's possible to do that. But the play of the ego will always be there because we are a physical embodied being. That's really important to acknowledge, is you need to be get really, really deeply connected. And it takes practice, it takes work, it takes time to develop and cultivate the ability to stay put as an I, as a pure I sense, as a pure witnessing consciousness, and allow everything to arise within it. And again, what this comes to is it creates a natural sense of acceptance for everything as it is, because it requires to stay as the witness. It requires you not getting involved and trying to like mess with everything, right? It requires like a thought coming up, for example, and be like, oh, I don't like that thought. It's a bad thought. Get this thought out of here. From the pure witnessing, that wouldn't arise. That feeling wouldn't arise from it. The pure witnessing accepts everything as it is, because it comes, it dances in front of you, and then it goes away on its own but when you give it attention and you get involved with it and you're trying to like, no, bad thought, turn into a better thought. You're involved with it and actually gives it more energy. Like when the life force of everything is attention. The life force of everything is that witnessing consciousness that's connected beyond the veil to the source of existence and creation, has, again, this attention factor, and giving it its focus and witnessing to something specific feeds it and fuels it and gives it life. So when you feed your thoughts, you give them more life, and then they go into like a dormant sleep state, and then they arise whenever they feel like it, right? They arise at an opportune moment for your attention, your focus, your awareness, your witnessing, which is the source of all existence that gives power to anything that it witnesses, right? Comes into play, and then it gets fed again. This is like the karmic loops. So resolving our karma is a way of witnessing something without getting involved, allowing it to be there without getting in there and trying to mess with it. And remembering that your actions, that your behavior and your expressions, when rooted perfectly, purely, unwavering in the witnessing consciousness, are spontaneously arise with full vigor and energy in the perfect, harmonious ways. This is important to remember also, because the mind, the ego, is going to fight against this, right? Because it wants the attention. It wants to keep being fed. The identity placed in these positions is really like a cord, like you plug it in by saying I to certain things. By giving the attention, you're taking the cord, which the power source is you're witnessing, right? The power source is Brahman, beyond the veil, the source of all creation, right? The cord that you plug into, like a thought goes by, you plug it in, you charge it, right? So this is where our mental disciplines can come into play, and we can cultivate great strength and great power when we kind of trust that this is going on, and really anchor and make this like a moment to moment thing that we can do. What I really like about this is like it never has to leave you. Anything that arises in your world, in your field, at any point during the day, you can acknowledge and just kind of reset. And this is kind of the process for a while, is like something arises, I identify, I suffer a little bit, I feel everything, I notice something, I have a judgment, I have a resentment come out, all of that stuff comes up, catching myself in there, involved with it all, and then backing out, maybe taking a few breaths, maybe having a conscious release and letting go, and then whatever arose and bubbled up is alchemized and set free, okay? So thank you for checking this out. I hope it helps. Just a quick recap. There's a conundrum here, and there's a paradox here. And I'm going to do another video on the paradox, but you only see yourself. You are not what you see. Right? After all this kind of dialogue, you only see yourself. Everything out in the world is a reflection of what you harbor inside. Nothing that you see is you, because I am purely the witness. Everything that arises within me cannot be what I am, because I am seeing it. Yeah? And this is living sort of free while embodied. This is living liberated as the pure witnessing transcendental self and being, while fully engaged with life, fully passionate, fully energized with what's alive for your purpose and your destiny, and why your particular version of being came into existence to begin with, to be exactly, perfectly, purely what it is. You get to be that and enjoy it in every movement of life, the lows and the highs of existence, the struggles and the triumphs, the victories and the defeats, all of that. You get to enjoy all of it and be a part of it in so much more of a nourishing way, because you're connected with the source of existence and life itself that is not separate from who and what you are. Aham Brahmasmi Kevalam. Om. Peace. Amen.